Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson. Sheely, good morning. It is what? Saturday, March the 27th. My. This year is coming and going. It's springtime. It's gloomy here today, but it is springtime here in Georgia. Let me see what my trusty co-host is this morning. Mr. David Slavin is here. Good morning, David.
Good morning to you, Tamara, and everybody.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm hanging in like a loose tooth.
Glad to see you hanging in like a loose tooth. So, how's your week been, David? It's been quite interesting around these parts here in Georgia. We'll actually get into that the
Yeah,
second half hour of the broadcast. Robbie should be joining us in just a few minutes. But definitely, this has been a I don't know. I don't really have words for Georgia right now. We're just all over the news. But we'll dive into that. But this morning's broadcast, David, is about Kendrick Johnson. Kendrick Johnson is the young man that was found at the high school, rolled up in the gym mat. And I wanted to bring his mother to the broadcast. I think she's with us. She
and
is
when was
down.
that? When was that? And when did it happen? And where
I
exactly?
want to. I will ask Miss Jackie as soon as she comes into the broadcast. But this has probably been maybe 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
But Miss Jackie will give us more details about when this all happened and where they are now.
Yeah.
We're not gonna forget. We're not gonna forget. We're not gonna go away. So we're gonna see
Right.
if she's ready. Miss Jackie, raise your hand. I see you back there. If you're ready for us, yes, ma'am. We'll bring her into the broadcast. Good morning, Jackie.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the broadcast.
Good morning, Jackie.
Good morning.
David just asked, how long has it been since this all happened with Kendrick?
8 years and a couple of months.
8 years. I thought it was about 5 years, but 8 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Jackie, why don't you fill the audience in that may not know who Kendrick was? Because Kendrick was a basketball player. Why don't you fill us in? Or was it football? I know he was into sports. He was athletic for sure. Fill us in on who Kendrick was and what happened for those that may not know the story.
Kendrick Johnson was a 17-year-old found in Valdosta, Georgia, rolled up in a wrestling mat. Kendrick played 3 sports. He played football, basketball, and he ran track.
Mm-hmm.
Baby of our bunch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to this day, Jackie, there still has been very little to come out. I know the investigation has been open and there's very little that you can say, but just, tell us who Kendrick was. Like, he was popular. He was handsome for sure. Get it from his mom and his daddy.
Thank you. Kendrick was the life of wherever he was. He always made people feel welcome. He loved his immediate family, and he was always trying to help somebody if he could. Kendrick was just my mom used to call him a peculiar child because he only hung with like a certain select amount of people. It was just like guys he growed up with from middle school, elementary, and on up. Kendrick was the life of the family. We used to just do crazy stuff through the house. We wrestle, and it used to be him and his dad on team, and me and my other kids, and we would just wrestle. We would have water fights. We didn't care about no furniture and stuff. We just had each other, and that was the best part of life, just being around each other.
Yeah. I've heard you tell the stories about how he had a lively personality, and he was a well-liked, popular kid, playing 3 sports. He was doing it.
Yeah. The girls loved him. I mean, the guys, and he was cool with just about everybody.
Mm-hmm. 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 So when this all happened, did the community rally around you, Jackie? How did, she says, this story broke my heart. She's over in Texas. So people know who you are, Jackie, and people know the story.
Well, in the beginning, before I guess they found out it was really finna be a fight about the case. We had a lot of people that ready to get with us, but then shortly after they found out that it was so much of the cover up and this and that, people begin to just bike away. And you know, my city, like, you can probably count on one or two hands that how many people still support and still ready. They'll say they support you on Facebook, but when it comes to an event or when it comes to just support, they may be saying they on the computer they do, but when it come down to it, boots on the ground, you see none of them. So
Yeah, I'm Georgia native. I'm a Georgia native too, Jackie, and I know, and I don't know. I don't want to. I don't know if this is a Georgia thing. I don't know if it's a Southern thing. I don't know if it's people, here in the South that are still a bit frightened, and I won't even say a bit. They are frightened. You know, Georgia is still the old South, and when you challenge the system here, you challenge the status quo, or you get out of line, or you speak up. A lot of people, here in Georgia still they get scared and intimidated by, you know, speaking truth to power. So my heart goes out to you, David. We won't
Yeah,
keep Jackie long this morning. I wanted to bring her because we are not going to forget Kendrick. We are not going to forget Kendrick.
yeah. I feel like these are the kind of things that go on in uh, other areas of the country as well. There are people whose I mean, racial and gender uh, uh, dismissal of people, who are the victims of crime, is seems to be a very widespread pattern. Um, and the an open murder investigation for this long is it, I mean, certainly there's a specific Southern white supremacy, that's connected with this. Um, it suggests to me that you've got, a police department and governmental agencies that are still dominated by whites, um, particularly, the as Tamara is saying, the kind of the old guard that used to be Dixiecrats and is now Republicans. You know, I, I don't know if you're what the situation is specifically in Valdosta, but that's something that I would really like to hear more about from you, Jacqueline. Uh, uh,
I can assure you that Valdosta is kind of probably still like Savannah and Waycross and Macon, anything south of Atlanta. And there's a running joke here that Atlanta ain't Georgia. So what happens here in the Atlanta metro area, it's not Georgia.
yeah, yeah. I think that's true, except when it comes to state representatives who are trying to look at the trying to watch the signing of a voting rights suppression bill, and then she gets arrested and charged with two felonies. So, it is and it isn't. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a really, really um, egregious position. But what can you tell us, Jacqueline, about the political situation in Valdosta? How is who runs the police department? Who gets responses from the police and who doesn't?
everything here in Valdosta is politics. I mean, Kendrick case turned out to be nothing but politics, and it's like his human life didn't matter. And I'll say, as far as who get called, like, a lot of people here don't even call the police when stuff go on, because if you call the police here, 9 times out of 10 it be you that go to jail. So I mean, what's the use in calling somebody for help for you when they come out and they take you to jail on top of what's already going on? So a lot of people just deal with their situations in their own homes and just do what they have to do, because you can't even get a fair trial. Like so many people, you go to jail for a traffic ticket, you get a year on probation for a traffic ticket. Plus, you got to pay supervision fees. How can if you couldn't pay the ticket? How you gonna pay a whole nother fine plus the ticket plus the supervision fee? It's just like they're making money and nothing else matters. If you're rich, it's this the system is built for you. But if you're not on their side or in their little circle, this system is not built for you at all.
Yeah.
That sounds like this situation that in the suburbs of St. Louis, just uh, 5 years ago. So that's
Good morning, Robbie. Welcome to the broadcast.
Good morning. I've been listening. I'm sorry, I had some trouble getting on.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. This is Miss Jacqueline Johnson. We will not forget Kendrick. We will not forget Kendrick. Somebody says, say his name, Kendrick Johnson. We will not forget.
I'm so glad you have a soldier in Marcus Coleman aiding your family. He is loyal beyond. I'm so impressed with him, and I'm glad you have someone like that in your corner. They're hard to find.
Thank you. He was supposed to be coming on, but maybe he got missed.
Yeah. Yeah. She said the system is designed to maximize profit of those in power. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jackie, we're not going to keep you. Like I said, we wanted to bring you on this morning because we will not forget Kendrick. We're all following this case. Anything that we can do to support you, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are here and we will be voices and we will be boots on the ground.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, I mean, isn't that interesting that the thing that she mentioned is right out of the playbook of predatory, state generation of income from poor people, particularly Black people, on traffic tickets and all of that other stuff. I mean, we've been dealing with this for generations, but particularly in this time, this whole thing about cash bail and predatory fining of poor people on. I mean, this is Ferguson, Missouri. This is exactly what ignited, the protests after Michael Brown's murder. That's the sustained the protests was this kind of action by the police and with support from the city and county governments. And this thing about if you call the police, you're more likely to be arrested than a perpetrator. We're all I mean, we've been dealing with this for years and years now. So it seems to me that I really think that we need to be aware that this is on in our in state and begin to invest in transformation of the power systems in these areas that don't seem to have yet a basis for for making these kind of political changes in the power relations in these communities.
Well, this is where it becomes institutional. because she's been championing her son the entire time.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and it's been so obvious due to the specifics of it that there was a cover up, and basically what happened to her son got covered up. And it was ratified by our state agency, our city agency, up until the federal government got involved, and they literally proceeded for years. It's amazing she had the wherewithal to maintain herself years later after a trauma like that.
Yeah.
And didn't lose it on someone, because that would cause it. When you know the truth of what's happened and everything around you is working against you, and she's paying for that system. We all are. She is paying to operate a system that has harmed, maligned her son directly, and her family knows the truth and had to go through this for years. And it's only because of advocates that go in and go hard, like Marcus Coleman, and a legal team that will actually take it on. Because most of the time, people won't touch it. Oh.
There he is. Good morning, Marcus. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. We had Jackie on just a few minutes ago. I know there's very little that she can say about the case, but we just want to applaud you, Marcus, for staying in the fight with this family. It's been a long journey. She said it's 8 years of pounding and pushing. So thank you for all that you've been doing to support this family.
I appreciate that.
And for your work in South Fulton.
Yeah, to be continued.
Marcus.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I don't know. I'm not sure where Mrs. J left off. So, any questions?
Well, tell us what you can. I know that this is an investigation that has been reopened. And I'm sure that there's only limited amount of information you can give there, but tell us what you can. Bring us up to speed. A lot of people nationally are watching this, and we want to be there to support you as you lead these advocacy efforts. Whatever we can do, feel free to reach out. Use us. We're here to support and be a part of making sure that justice that there's justice for Kendrick.
Yes, ma'am. Well, it's been 8 years and 2 months, but Kendrick's case was actually closed June of 2016. As the uprisings that I like to say over the summer, as they caught fire and Breonna Taylor's and George Floyd's were being mentioned, it just never sat well with me about Kendrick. And so I started the process to try to get this case reopened. Unbeknownst to us, Georgia federally had totally recused itself. And all questions were to be answered and asked out of the Northern District of Ohio. Well, instantly folks say, why do you have to go to Ohio for a dead child found in a gymnasium in Georgia? Long story short, communication back and forth with that U.S. attorney, who was a Trump appointee and had like 2 months before he was getting ready to leave office. So we were very leery. But I have to give a former U.S. Attorney Herdman his credit. He was a man of his word. He reviewed the files, which led him to file federal papers in Valdosta, sending 17 boxes to Lowndes County, which ultimately got this case reopened. I'll pause right here. Kendrick only had 17 short years on this earth. We feel like it's symbolic that each one of those boxes represents 1 year of his short life that ultimately now has this case reopened. We're not cheering. We've been through this before, but we're sure in a much better place we were than a couple of months ago.
For those people who don't know legal jargon, what does it mean for recusing, for when an agency, a city or state agency recuses itself?
Totally removes itself. Totally removes itself. And it's good for people to know that Kendrick's case was Lowndes County, Valdosta PD, GBI, FBI, and it ultimately was handled out of the U.S. Department of Justice, specifically head of the Homicide Division. This case went all the way to the Attorney General's desk with there being a raid on then a currently employed FBI agent. I list all of those not just because those are facts, but this family has been fighting several entities of government here, which again, we're happy that this case is now reopened, because if there's any case that needs extra attention, we feel like it's Kendrick.
And so a crime obviously the justice for it would happen in the jurisdiction that it occurred. So for them to remove themselves from that, there was I believe a law enforcement officer entangled in someone who was accused or who was involved in a problem with Kendrick after he was found in between the gym mats with no organs, fingernails tampered with, his body. I believe he had no tongue, right?
He was missing every organ in his body, and his tongue and windpipe had been removed. Yes, ma'am.
And instead of that, there was newspapers in his body.
Stuff with newspaper articles and magazines.
And that jurisdiction said, we will not handle this. And said that it was I believe the first cause, wasn't it? He choked on himself, fixed something.
Okay, well, the first autopsy said that Kendrick died of positional asphyxiation. This family was told that their son climbed up on the bleachers to jimmy down in the middle of a gym mat to retrieve a shoe, got stuck and died. We all knew that was bogus. Since then, they have performed 2 additional autopsies. Autopsy 2 and 3 both say Kendrick died of blunt force trauma, which again, we feel like is the catalyst for the reopening of this investigation, because when it was closed on the federal level in 2016, it was never stamped accidental, like some would like to say.
And I'm sorry to bring up those very difficult points to hear. I specifically didn't say it with his mom on, because I'm sure she's had to go through this over and over. But this is why people say there's no justice for certain people in our justice system. It's taken 8 years under those circumstances, and our state, city agencies will literally remove themselves when this happens to a young child who's Black.
I mean, when we're talking about the backwoods of Georgia, I mean, we know that we have an issue with race. Georgia is the Confederate capital of the nation. And the disparities show definitely in the justice system.
And I see a lot of your advocacy, Marcus or Mr. Coleman. You kind of reference, like, is Georgia blue? Is Georgia blue? Is this one of the examples why you say that?
Well, we've come a long way politically here in Georgia. I don't want to put a damper on it, but sometimes I just feel like we party a little too soon, and that gets taken advantage of. Case in point, Senate Bill 202. We partied so much that we won those 2 U.S. Senate seats, and we didn't even see what was right in front of us. So my reference to is Georgia blue is just to remind people that we got a lot of work to do.
No, I agree with you. And I think what's helpful a lot of times is when people connect the dots. There are people like you and Tamara that are immersed in this body of work and listen to different components and are able to connect the dots. And then when you voice it, instead of coming at you or attacking Tamara, we need to share in public arena this information, because you're working on multiple cases. And again, people like Jackie, I don't know how she has dealt with this for 8 years and not lost it on someone. I don't know if you want to speak on it, but you recently had an injustice in your own city. You were
yes, absolutely. Pending investigation, so there'll be some more information to come on that. But looking very forward to the outcome of that. But let me just speak about Mrs. Johnson real quick. I mean, here's a family that for 4 years straight, they were literally out every day except Sunday for 4 years straight. Many times, Mrs. Johnson, when I say out, out at the Justice Center in Valdosta. Many times, Mrs. Johnson would be by herself. I mean, she has gone from a mother that was quiet initially to now being a shoulder for other mothers all across the country. So I mean, I just applaud Mrs. Johnson for her strength.
And forgive me if I'm wrong, maybe you can correct me, but wasn't there an entanglement with a youth that had a problem with Kendrick, who had a relationship with law enforcement?
The federal government named 3 targets for their investigation. Target 1 was a local FBI agent, and 2 and 3 were his sons. It's known that Kendrick and one of the sons had like a scuffle, a run-in. But I want to make sure I'm clear. We have never named any individual. The federal government named those 3 targets.
And one of those sons went to the same school as Kendrick.
Both sons went to the same school.
8 years in our criminal justice system to say something's wrong and to actually have a case reopened based on those facts. And the sad part is she's the one who has to walk around guarding what she has to say. And most of the time, if someone is fortunate enough to actually win what's quote unquote justice, they're silenced, they're gagged. So they can't even tell people. That's why the work that Mr. Coleman does is so valuable, because he actually can guide the next people to get some type of justice. But that example of the children of the law enforcement officer who was involved is what is social currency. So when we put all these things together, we then realize an entire system is here. And that's why people say that it's institutional and it's a systemic issue, and it works against people of color of lower income specifically.
Well, just let me take a minute and applaud you guys. So, Tamara, I see you get jumped on or I don't want to say beat up, but on social media, I see people take a lot of punches at you for your strong stance, or stances, I should say. So I just wanted to applaud you as well.
Thank you.
Everything but a child of God. And every non-important fact except the topic at hand will come up. Every irrelevant will be brought up, and it's really pathetic. But to the point of the criminal justice system, when people go to see justice, who are our judges? And they're appointed. So this is why it's taking 8 years. And she still is in the struggle.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson are one of many, but I mean, you guys have to see that there is a shift. There's desperation on one end, which is why we see some of this legislation. And there's numbers, to me, where we never had them before, intergenerational movements. All we got to do is just keep pushing.
Well, I will continue to follow you. I love your videos. I love how blunt you are. I love how you call people out. I saw that the city of South Fulton spent over $300,000 on purchasing a military vehicle to enforce, I don't know what, against their citizens. I don't know why that would be needed. And I agree with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
What? Wait, what? They purchased a $300,000 piece of military equipment?
Looks like a tank.
It's called a Bearcat, a militarized vehicle. I mean, there's so much going on here in the city of South Fulton. I'm gonna have to get back to y'all on that one, but
we're gonna talk about that, because I want to understand, like, why do you need military equipment in South Fulton? 4
years new. This vehicle could have been accessed by Fulton County PD. They have a helicopter, they have a command center, and they have a Bearcat, or local municipalities or police departments if needed. But we purchased our own. There's so much in South Fulton. I would love to come on and just chop it up about the blackest city in America.
Please do. You are more than welcome to come back. We would love to have you. And I have lots of questions, because I see the post, and I don't follow the city that, to really know what's going on. So I'm sure there's lots of information that we need to know.
Yes, ma'am. Well, look, when we do that, then I can discuss a little more detail about the run-in with Corporal Solomon Muhammad.
We look forward to it.
Yeah. Marcus, I hope you win, and I hope you get every single thing you have coming to you, because what people don't realize is that when something like what happened to you, which you're still here,
Yes.
It's stop when people stop at that level, when agencies hold people accountable, our officers accountable at that level, and the city government backs them. It doesn't get to the levels that what Jackie has had to suffer, because people don't want to risk the punishment on, you know, an assault on you, someone taking your camera, someone lying on, you know, just because an officer says you do something, and I'm saying this on purpose, doesn't mean it happens.
Absolutely.
And the only reason you're in the position you're in is because you actually had a different grandma other than the one he tried to take from you. Well,
and again, we'll get into this next time. But even on his body cam, you know, it displayed that he not only lied to superior officers but falsified documents as well.
Which
but South Fulton, I'm sorry.
Which could have disappeared.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, I know lots of people who have been maligned, and this is why people don't trust the police. So instead of, you know, jumping on Tamara, instead of jumping on you, instead of jumping on that bandwagon to hate somebody who's, you know, doing something good for everybody, take a minute, listen to what the person's saying.
Marcus, we're gonna have to have you back, and we're gonna give you a whole hour, because I know whatever you bring is gonna be fire. And I want we will definitely want to share this with our listening audience. So you are welcome to come back, Marcus, and we look forward to having you.
All right. Well, I appreciate y'all, and we'll do it real soon. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Marcus.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Tamara, I'm so sorry I was late. We're remodeling here. So sorry.
It's fine, Robbie. Yes. Good morning.
Yes, I'm very particular, and I never wear robes on the show, just to be clear.
David, that was a lot, you know, having Jackie, having Marcus.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with all of the details. Maybe you could fill that in, you know, before we move on to anything else.
Well, I'll give that to Robbie. She follows Marcus Coleman pretty closely, so she kind of keeps up, and she keeps me informed about what's going on. I didn't know South Fulton bought a $300,000 piece of damn equipment. The thought of that, when you have a brand new city that needs so many, I'm sure so many other things, you know, the resources are limited. I'm sure. Why the heck would y'all buy a piece of military equipment? And the hell are you trying to military? You got to police your people like that?
Well, I mean, Tamara, you know what's happening. There's a recent letter by, I believe it's Senator Ralston, sent to the city of Atlanta about crime. So, you know, people are anticipating crime, and a lot of the people out of Atlanta, city of Atlanta, are being displaced due to city of Atlanta's failure to plan under the Bottoms and the Reed administration and under the Department of Planning Commissioner Tim Keene. And so the people who are being displaced are predominantly lower income people, and they're not going with like job training skills or, you know, money saved and so on. So these cities that are getting displaced, these cities, Tri-Cities, you know, East Point, South Georgia, city of South Fulton, rural Georgia, they're getting folks who are coming with very little, and they are preparing. They're not only preparing in their policies to stop lease purchases, to stop affordable housing, to stop the maximum units that can be built for affordable housing. They're doing all of that. So that's why it's such a, and see the media, our media, well, that's why I said what I said about Marcus, because he's one of the few people like you who will get online on a public venue, not in a private chat, not in a messenger, not behind someone. He will get out there publicly, and he's a bit colorful, you know, he uses colorful language, and he's very, you know, passionate, you know, but he's not wrong. He's not wrong. And instead of attacking him, he could use support.
I'm just so stuck on the fact that they've spent this money in South Fulton for to militarize the police department. I can't wait for him to come back and share more about what's going on in South Fulton. I see some posts, and I know there's some controversy there with the leadership. They seem to be having a really hard time. You know, there's work to be done. There's work to be done.
His profile is public, you know, and to kudos to City of South Fulton in the sense that they had the vision and executed, and Marcus was one of the people that aided that, to branch off and say, we're going to make our own city. You know, that's what Sandy Springs did. That's what was another one on the north side. It broke off from
But
the
Sandy Springs didn't buy a military vehicle to why? Why would you police your community like that? Why is that an option? South Fulton.
I mean, all the city council members approved it. But then again, why is no city council member, I think one of them, and I should probably wait for Marcus, has come out against the incident with Officer Muhammad. In essence, Marcus basically, short story, he, you know, and it's interesting this happened to him. I'm sure it wasn't like the universe orchestrated this not by accident. He basically went to a traffic stop. He saw like something going wrong in the middle of the street, a dangerous situation. And he said, hey, he saw an officer in the car. Hey, officer, you think there's someone going to come out and direct traffic? And the officer, instead of answering him, rolled up the window. He was like, so Marcus, being Marcus, was like, hey, I'm sure y'all could use some, you know, help with traffic and so on, knowing the area, growing up in the area, being an advocate. And the officer came out and said and approached him, and Marcus was like, no, I'm fine. You know, he had his camera out. And then the officer took the camera from him. There was some type of physical, because you see the things moving around, and Marcus was arrested and detained in the police car until a higher level officer came and said, you know, that's Mr. Coleman. He works with the community. And then the report from the officer said that Mr. Coleman was the aggressor, which I saw the video. So in essence, you have a police officer that falsified a report, raised the level of a situation because a citizen dared to ask a question. And that's what we have to think about. What type of enforcement do we want? Do we want tanks in our street? When you are calling for enforcement, when citizens call for enforcement, when citizens demand more policing, instead of investing in communities, think about what you're asking for. Tamara.
My thing is, what is the tank for? Are you gonna shoot? Are you gonna run over people? What the hell is a tank for in a community, in a neighborhood?
Well, I guess if a riot happens, now we have a tank.
To do what? Who you gonna shoot?
Roll through to prove a point, to get people to be afraid, you know, and be like, get back in your house. This is not how things are done. When Clayton County puts out media about the street racers that says not in Clayton County, okay, the sheriff office has done that, about street racers that are in a parking lot, but City of Atlanta and no city will give these street guys, these racers and car groups, okay, that really aren't doing anything, you know, I mean, so they like to ride around and do wheelies, so they like to spin. Can we assign a place for that? Other cities have done that effectively, you know, but there's a problem with this demographic, and instead we criminalize everything.
So David, you got a backstory now.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly the pattern that we saw in Ferguson after Michael Brown's death. That all of these things came out about predatory policing, about generating income from the poorest people generating income for the city. To run the police department from the poorest people in the community, and it's been a real struggle. I don't know where they're at in Ferguson now about changing that city government. You know, they've been struggling over that for 6-7 years, and you know, it's and the same thing in Ferguson. With the tank, you know, they have a tank in Ferguson. You know, I mean, I remember seeing this militarization of the police, which follows the warrior mentality, you know, of police departments and the training that they get, which is, you know, to see themselves as an occupying army under threat from the people that they're supposed to be. You know, serving and protecting, and where when people talk about defunding the police, that's what they're focusing on. You know, it's not that we don't.
Those resources damn sure could have been used for something else. Community policing, doing more to help the community. Tank.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. But I really liked what Robbie was saying. What you were saying, Robbie, about this coming out of the gentrification of these areas, you know, and and a response to a threat to the gentrifying, people who are moving in from the displacement that's going on of poor people in Atlanta.
Poor
So
Black
the
people.
response is not to provide provide housing. It's to, buy a tank. I mean, um, it's really astonishing how little, their learning, is going on with this kind of repressive behavior and the intimidation and the threat of the use of force. You know,
And make no mistake about it, for people who think, oh, I don't live there or whatever, we are all paying for this. The
yes,
lack
yeah,
of planning in Atlanta under the Bottoms administration that arose out of the Reid administration, both Democrats. Now Biden's coming to repay our mayor for helping him win, etc. We failed to plan in Atlanta unless the plan was to get rid of all the poor Black people. When there was a chance to provide some type of program when the housing was affordable, to place people who were already paying in rent, to provide large scale jobs, to help people with credit or do lease options, there were willing developers. City of Atlanta Planning Department under Commissioner Tim Keene failed to do that. They never corrected the problematic structure of the NPU. I saw the article you sent, David. We can chat about that if you want. And at the NPU, we have that poll tax. There's all this talk about the voting rights in Atlanta and our state reps getting arrested at the door of the governor for stepping on an officer's shoe, I believe. Riddle me that. But nobody's talking about the poll tax, the modern day poll tax at the NPU system. And that is how, instead of empowering legacy residents, City of Atlanta funded for-profit tour after for-profit tour. When you send a bunch of people with more money in communities where people don't have the money, you didn't empower them with money to buy their own. You basically sold them out. And you sent all those people packing. Okay, it's the new Atlanta Trail of Tears to South Fulton, to rural Georgia, to Tri-Cities, for them to handle it. But we, okay, because we all like to think that we're blue now and everything's fine. No, it's not. We are all paying for this. How? Federal funds, down payment programs. Where does that come from? All this affordable housing that we're now going to have to do bonds on to fund this. And none of it will yield any wealth creation for those people. All that money instead, I don't know why Commissioner Tim Keene still has a job. And all the media is saying is the last articles is that we're changing this now. Well, we're modifying. They're not modifying where it needs to happen. They're not modifying why there's low inventory. They're not meeting with whistleblowers that is causing, the demand and increase that's all going on the Atlanta taxpayer. They're not dealing with the Georgia Real Estate Commission and regulations that aren't being enforced. Nobody's talking about that. Instead, our city council is on their, kind of shifting the narrative like this is what we're doing now. Why? Because all of them were complicit when this happened. All of them. They all watched it happen and did nothing.
The Democratic buzzword, affordable housing does not create wealth. Does not create wealth.
Well, it does for the developer who flips it. It does for the person who's loaning the money on the building that got sold for nothing, like Jeff Bezos. He's going to invest in affordable housing when he's fighting people in his own company to start a union for living wages and medical. So he wants to house them. So he controls that too. So he's giving us money to buy our buildings to develop them. And our government, our city, thinks this is a good idea. Why? Because they are bought by corporate. They are on both sides, and we need to be honest about it.
Yeah, I was watching something just yesterday, and it was talking about how politicians are prostitutes and they're bought and sold. And I was like, oh, And I was thinking to myself, well, hell, maybe that's why I've had a hard time getting elected, because I can't be bought and sold.
I would agree with that. He's not going to tell us about it, because for Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. So the only way we're going to get this information is via people like you and Marcus, and David, willing to go. Marcus's profile is public. Your profile is public. When people come at y'all, everybody sees it. So, before you go and critique someone who's actually doing a public service and taking hits, give a minute to what they have to say. They actually might tell you a little more than what the media is publishing in that narrative that is skewed.
Yeah. Traditional media, that's why I we've been doing this broadcast now for 2.5 years, going into our 3rd year of doing this broadcast every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. And, we keep coming and we keep coming and we keep bringing you information, because traditional media does not tell you the truth. They're not telling you the truth. And we play this political game with Democrats and Republicans. And we're the ball that's being tossed back and forth. The people are. You're the ball that's being tossed back and forth. And we're not winning anywhere. The people we're not winning anywhere.
No, and I like that analogy, because without the ball, there's no game. We're the producers. We are the producers. We are making this money for our politicians to pay their salaries, to keep a gym, to pay for Camp David, where Biden still goes to vacation. Why do we even have that? Half of them are billionaires. Why? I don't have a gym. It's a pandemic. Why do we have that? I'm baffled on it. And when it almost reminds me of this game of Three-Eyed Monty. Like somebody's taking that shell game. Mm-hmm. And they're putting it there, and you're following, and you're trying to follow where this money goes. These down payment programs, they're federally funded. So you cause a displacement issue, you cause a gentrification, you cause people to have to go south. You didn't empower, and now we're going to give you a down payment that's federally funded off of your taxes. So you're going to get 20 grand, 15 grand, and go toward a house that's now $400,000 because City of Atlanta thought it was a good idea to fund out of tours, out of City Hall, out of Invest Atlanta, out of the Beltline. All that's funded by who?
Taxpayers.
Yeah, we're the ball. We're the ball. Without us, they don't have a game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm tired of being tossed back and forth. I think that's my frustration, and I don't play party politics. I'm a Democrat, but I'm an independent Democrat. I don't play party politics, because it's about the people. And I think that's the root of my frustration, is that we get lost in being on a team. I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm this, I'm that, we get lost in that, when it should always be about policy. Who cares what team it is? I don't care. I'm at a place in a space where I'm caring less and less and less about what Democrat, Republican. It's all about policy. Period.
Well, I don't even take a political affiliation anymore. I don't, because I'm too disgusted at what I have seen happen to people. And really, I had to check myself, because I was getting pretty toxic. But when you see preachers' daughters who come, I ran a community center here in Southwest Atlanta. We did the work. It was the city that didn't deliver. This did not have to happen. And if it ever comes to the point where it gets to get released, to see the truth about the gentrification in Atlanta, I'll be there singing like a canary, because we went to City of Atlanta to try and do something about it. We're willing to tell everything. My clients were damaged. My business was damaged. People came to that center and said, we really want this house. We made sure real people got in properties. And then they turned around, and the same people that they were able to buy the property because of their neighbors, they excluded them out of this neighborhood association by that monetary dues. So what City of Atlanta does in the neighborhood planning unit structure is allow for these neighborhood associations to charge money for them to vote. So it cancels out the information. All these people who don't have money, you're not going to pay when you're outnumbered anyway. You don't have the money. So all the agenda that goes up to planning, that goes up to through the NPU, that goes to APAB, that goes to City Hall is sufficient. And that's why we gentrified. But every single city council person has come up under that system. And it's happened under Commissioner Keene, and it's planning commissioner, and it's happened under Mayor Bottoms. You know, Mayor Bottoms posted on Instagram the other day in a hoodie with her husband in her backyard saying, oh, I enjoy being in my backyard because of COVID. We got a housing crisis. People are homeless, and you're posting about your backyard, but it's okay because you're wearing a hoodie. Come on, y'all. You can see. I mean, can't you see through this?
Robbie, I'm giving you a high five, girl. Come on, Robbie. Come on, Robbie.
Our media is trash. Our media is trash. WSB TV is nothing but a propaganda owned by CBS. That's it. You get an article and it looks like everything's happening for these people. No, that's not true. You know, that's not true. So,
David, we're tired. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah. I mean, we need to think about where this is going. I mean, there are shifts that are taking place. As Marcus was saying, there's there's transformations. I mean, to what extent that's going to make a difference, I really don't know. I think there is a real difference between the Republicans and the Democrats, but to what extent that actually makes a difference on the ground where Robbie is in the conditions that Robbie is talking about. I don't know. It seems like there's a real internal conflict going on, or contradiction within the Democratic Party establishment itself, that remains to be seen where the which direction it goes in. There more and more of the Democratic Party is shifting to the progressive wing, but how progressive is
I don't know if we're shifting right now. I feel like we're all kind of Joe Biden is rocking a lot of people back to sleep, and this is all establishment. I don't know how progressive we are right now, David.
Well,
if we're shifting, how can City of Atlanta, under a Democratic mayor, a prior Democratic mayor with the same system, allow monetary dues at the civic engagement level when there's no common areas to manage? An HOA has a parking lot, a pool, a tennis. In City of Atlanta, I pay my taxes to use my park. So these neighborhood associations that have no oversight, they use personal emails that don't disclose conflicts of interest. All they're doing is shutting the poor people out and then helping themselves to every opportunity community asset that comes along. These people are acquiring commercial buildings right now and calling it the beloved community. And Invest Atlanta is going to fund the development of those buildings.
Yeah,
literally have developments going on, people collecting money with no oversight of the FCC, and this is all part of City of Atlanta government. It is ratified by City of Atlanta by allowing it. They are put on notice, they are allowing it, all under the Democrats. How can that be that we're shifting? They're not correcting it. They allow personal emails. There's no oversight. There's the illusion of oversight. Yeah. And we're all going to pay for it now. And they're getting ready by buying these tanks, because when something happens to somebody and there's a riot, they're going to break out the tank.
Yeah.
What you hear in this dialogue, for our listening audience, you hear Robbie, who is very localized with her initiative. She's talking specifically about Atlanta. I speak from a state perspective, the state of Georgia. David is saying, we're more and more progressive. I think he's looking at us, nationally. He feels like nationally we're moving more in this to the progressive wing of politics. But David, I'm just.
I hear you. I mean, I'm not. I'm not rejecting or denying all of the real lived on the ground experience that you and Robbie are talking about. You know, it's you know, this is the kind of thing that's been going on for, you know, for decades, if not generations. And do we have a way of changing it on the ground? You know, and I mean, yeah, I mean, that note from Ian Graves is really quite true. That Biden comes from the central section of the Democratic Party, the corporate wing of the Democratic Party, but he's dealing with a Democratic Party that's very different from the Clinton years and even the Obama years. So, you know, uh, uh, where does this begin to actually affect? Where does the change in the Democratic Party at the national level actually begin to affect what's going on at the local level? I don't know. There seems to be a real disconnect.
But David, Uncle Joe is coming to Atlanta to raise money for Keisha, who helped get him in office when Keisha is basically the majority of the reason why Atlanta gentrified.
Yeah, I'm not. That's what I'm saying, Robbie. I'm saying that I don't know if this progressive wing of the Democratic Party has the ability to actually change things on the ground at the local level.
But our options are the problem, and it's the Democratic Party that's controlling those options. The same thing with the Republican. So the only people running for mayor right now that I know are Mayor Bottoms. She's rerunning. And Felicia Moore, City Council President Felicia Moore. And make no mistake about it, Felicia Moore is a licensee. She's a broker. She's very aware of real estate. I don't know why she hasn't addressed this issue of the predatory in a meaningful way, not in that little Matt Westmoreland, looking like we're doing something. Okay. What it looks like to me is that they're all just posting away on social media, very comfortable off of what we fund. And no one is modifying the civic engagement process or making changes in a real estate industry that would impact the problem of inventory. Our NPUs are a slush fund they are. I know this because I saw it. My own council person in District 12 gets a kickback when something happens with a liquor license or a gas station goes out. Okay, that's how they fund their campaigns. That's how it works in Atlanta. Everybody has their hands in it, and there's no oversight in it. So unless ethics modifies, unless the civic engagement modifies, unless somebody wonders, where's the Georgia Real Estate Commission? That's appointed by the governor, by the way.
And speaking on that note, the governor. I think everybody saw in the news that he signed a bill. But next week, I'm gonna share my screen. Next week, we're gonna have Miss Candace Taylor, who is primarying Mr. Brian Kemp. She's going to be on our broadcast, and we're going to talk about the governor. We're going to talk about what's happening here in the great state of Georgia. So make sure you join us next week right here at 11 o'clock a.m. right here, because we're going to bring it next week. David going to play hooky on us, but we ladies will hold it down.
I'm curious what he has to say.
Next week, y'all. David, we're almost at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
This was a great broadcast.
Yeah, and I mean, we can see whether the response and the reaction to the voter suppression law that just got passed is going to open up, more democratic small d participation from below. That because I agree with you, Robbie, that there is a fear of democracy, not just by the Republicans. There's a real fear of democracy in the Democratic Party as well, but they're in this contradictory position of having to mobilize, in order to defeat the voter suppression of the Republicans. I think it's an interesting situation. we need to be, we can't be too monolithic about, and throw them all into the same, into the same bin, same garbage can.
I think
We need
it's
to have
expensive, wasteful, and harmful.
yeah, we need to have separate garbage cans, I think, for the Republicans and the Democrats.
Well, we're at the hour. I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. Thank you to my co-host, Ms. Robbie Caban. You can find Robbie at robbiecaban.com. You can find Mr. David Slavin right here on Facebook at Acknowledge the Divide. I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. You can find me at tamarashealy.com. And every week we give it to you. We give voice to issues, activists, and activism. Please support us. Support our broadcast. It's tamaraforgeorgia.com. You can cash app us, the Tamara for Georgia. This is real media. This is where we bring you stories outside of the stories. We're not sugarcoating it. We bring it to you. RAW. David.
Thank you. Power to the people.
Broadcast. Have a great week, everybody. See you next week.
Sorry for the questions and the comments weren't answered. We'll look at them.
Okay.